When people tried to stop severe global warming by dispersing a kind of cooling substance into the atmosphere, the world's temperature dropped rapidly. Earth embraces a new ice age someday, and most human lives are killed on Earth. A small number of people survive the catastrophe and board a circumnavigational train in a last attempt to save the human race. The Snowpiercer is a perpetual engine train on Earth's surface that the elite and wealthy enjoy their luxurious life in the front cars, while the poor are forced to crowd inside squalid tail compartments for years without proper food but tasteless black protein blocks. The tail passengers are planning an uprising led by Curtis with his elderly mentor. Curtis receives a message hidden inside a protein block that says that the only security expert who can open the doors all the way to the front is locked up in the prison section right before they start the uprising. However, a woman dressed in yellow from the front comes to the tail and takes 2 kids away for a health check. The kid's father fights his way through and hits the woman in her head with his shoe. The man is soon taken control of by soldiers and punished for disobedience. The minister, a representative of the train captain, orders to punish him with the freezing sentence, a brutal punishment where one exposes their arm in the frozen environment for several minutes before smashing it into pieces. The incident burns Curtis's last concern of any unsuccessful riot that happened 4 years ago. The minister says to the soldiers, inadvertently, that the soldiers must have run out of bullets due to the last riot. Curtis approaches a soldier, holds his gun up at the soldier's forehead, and finds an expected empty gun while pulling its trigger. Seeing that, the rest of the people rush to block the security door from closing with a huge iron tube and manage to kill a tough soldier who stands there to stop their progress moments later. The group finds the security expert and wakes him up with a drug cube Curtis promises to exchange for each door. He opens the door, but the security expert haggles to double the price for him and his daughter, Yona, who's lying next to his prison unit. The security expert opens the door to an empty carriage through the windows of which people are all shocked by the icy world outside. The security expert opens the second door and leads everyone to a cooking carriage where Curtis is shocked to notice that the fresh, warm protein blocks that feed the hungry tail people are made of cockroaches. However, Curtis decides to not tell his followers this just yet, and he gets a new message slip from his informant. The informant has written the word "water" on it, and the mentor explains that once they control the water, they'll control the train. As the group progresses further, they encounter a large group of soldiers armed with axes. They fall into a fierce battle, immediately causing many to lose their lives and the whole car to be bloodstained during the chaos. An officer standing behind announces that the train is going to pass a time mark bridge. All people there stop their fighting for a while and turn to cheer up the upcoming new year. Then the minister shows up again and threatens to kill the tail people if they continue their revolt against the train captain. But nobody buys it until they see that night vision goggles are being handed out to the soldiers who are arming themselves with them. They realize that this is why the group suffered a great loss in the dark tunnel. At that moment, Curtis orders his men to pass some torches to the front. The whole carriage is lit up again. The rebels fight back in a joint effort, and Curtis takes the minister hostage to get a ceasefire order. Yona kills one of her men with a spear, who attempts to stab Curtis in his back while they're in the water carriage. Curtis wants to shut down the water supply of the whole train in order to get some bargaining chip over the train captain. But the minister explains that since the water is melted from the ice stored in the front, the shutdown won't affect the front cars too much. Without a better choice, Curtis decides to move forward with taking the minister hostage. Curtis and some of his men followed the minister, and they went through a thriving orchard. They also went to the aquarium and the raw meat processing sections. Finally, they reached a schoolroom where rich families' kids were tutored with their heroic deeds of the train captain who saved humanity with his train. The teacher also showed them the riot history of the notorious 7 rebels who fled out but ended up frozen to statues in the far distance after a failed attempt to overthrow the hierarchy and stop the train. Many years ago, the security expert told her daughter that the leader of those 7 rebels is, in fact, exactly her mother, who's an Eskimo, who believes that people can survive outside the train. Meanwhile, as a bald guy takes out eggs for the children to celebrate the 18th New Year, Curtis receives a message hidden inside an egg, but only finds the word "blood" written on the note before he gets enough time to straighten things out. The teacher suddenly pulls a gun and shoots at Curtis and his men. One of Curtis's men is about to kill the teacher, but is killed by one of the bald guy's men. Unfortunately, Curtis and his other men have been shot down by the bald guy, And the mentor is also executed before the camera, which is purported to humiliate Curtis in rage. He then takes revenge and kills the begging minister instead after that. Curtis and his team continue to search forward, astonished by the luxurious lives of the rich. At a U-turn, the sniper targets Yona, shooting at her but missing a fatal shot. The sniper goes on a rampage later, executing a first-class passenger and soldier who tries to stop his insanity. Suffering injury caused by a sudden attack, the rampaging sniper overpowers the attacker easily before knocking Curtis out as the sniper is about to terminate Curtis. The attacker sacrifices himself to save Curtis from the sniper right at that critical moment. The security expert confronts the sniper, and Curtis and the security expert put an end to the sniper's life. Finally, the remaining three, the security expert, Curtis, and his daughter Yona, reach the last car before the engine where the captain's supposed to live. Depressed by the loss of everything, Curtis can't wait any longer to break in. The security expert stops him, remaining calm and polite. Curtis reveals a horrible past where, after starving for the first few months without food and water, people began to hunt each other for food, and the tail section had resorted to cannibalism. One day, an old man cut his one arm to feed the rest in exchange for the life of a baby that they were going to kill and eat. Because of this, Curtis found his humanity and became a faithful follower of the old man, who turned out to be his most trusted mentor. However, it seems only interested in blasting the side door open with an explosive made of drug cubes it's collected so far because it noticed the gradual exposure of the tail of a crashed plane under the bridge, indicating that the temperature was increasing slowly and the ice was thawing. It believes that it's time for humans to escape the train. However, Curtis doesn't trust his theory and refuses to give the matches to him. They're arguing about the woman in yellow when suddenly she walks out and shoots the security expert. She then takes Curtis inside before the train captain, who begins to uncover the shocking truth that the revolt is actually the best way to control the train population and balance food demand and supply. Curtis's most trusted mentor is actually the one who planned the revolt 15 years ago, and the last riot 4 years ago to prove he's not lying. The train captain even shows him secret messages he hid inside the food every time before sending them to Curtis and his men. At a total loss, Curtis moves further to tell him that he wants to take his position after he dies and keep the engine running. The security expert stops the coming hostile passengers and sends Yona to detonate a drug bomb. Yona knocks out the woman in yellow and runs to Curtis for matches. To her surprise, Curtis refuses her. It seems he'd rather trust the captain and stand by his side. Yona then pries open a floorboard and reveals a little boy who had been hiding in the tail section under the name of a health check, but actually sent to work the engine as a slave. The captain explained that the perpetual engine could run forever, but there was no way to prevent its parts from wearing out. However, only small kids can fit in the small gap, working as a replacement and becoming part of the engine. Curtis was appalled by such inhumane deeds and knocked him out immediately. Later, Curtis sacrificed one of his arms to rescue the enslaved kid out of the machinery. In the process, Yona detonated a fuse with matches, while Curtis and a security expert used their bodies to protect Yona and the kid from a huge explosion that caused a massive avalanche that derails the whole train. Shortly after, only Yona and the kid survive the wreckage while walking into the endless snow-white world. They're in fear and despair until the sudden appearance of a polar bear in the far distance rekindles their hope of humanity and human hormone in such an unknown world. Kindly make sure you subscribe to my channel and do hit the like button.